Welcome to this explainer. Look, right now, absolutely everyone is talking about chatbots and generative AI. But there's this really uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to admit. Standalone generative AI models, they are fundamentally insufficient for real enterprise workflows. I mean, sure, generating language is amazing, but operating an entire institution, that takes something far more powerful. Enter Agentic AI. Let's unpack exactly why this is the actual solution we've been waiting for. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the evolution of enterprise tech, hit the chatbot ceiling, dive into what is Agentic AI, break down the anatomy of an agent, look at the cognitive operations stack, and finally, wrap it all up with human-in-the-loop governance. Let's jump in. First up, the evolution of enterprise tech, 80 years of delegation. To really understand where we're going, we have to look back. For decades, software was, well, mostly passive. Think back to the 1960s. Mainframes did heavy arithmetic. Then the 1990s gave us ERPs to rigidly enforce business processes. By the 2000s, we got cloud and SaaS. But here's the catch. Even with early automation, it only worked if there were absolutely zero exceptions. Software did exactly what it was told, no more, no less. The humans still had to coordinate literally everything else. And while each of these massive technological waves solved a real problem, in doing so, they actually created a brand new ceiling. Mainframes hit a judgment ceiling. ERPs hit an adaptability ceiling. Standard automation, it hit an ambiguity ceiling. Which brings us right to the 2020s, this incredible moment where machines have finally begun to actually reason and take autonomous action. That leads us right into our second part. The chatbot ceiling, why generative AI is not enough. Okay, so there's an uncomfortable truth that enterprise leaders are facing right now. It goes like this. The demo always works, right? And then the system goes into real use and encounters a real-world workflow, hits the very first edge case, and suddenly the gap between the demo and production opens up like a massive fault line. This is what we call the production tax. AI pilots in the enterprise fail because, frankly, generating a polite email is very, very different from securely operating an institution. You see, standalone large language models, or LLMs, suffer from four massive structural gaps. One, they have no persistent memory. Two, they have zero workflow execution capability, meaning they can tell you how to process an invoice, but they can't actually go do it. Three, they don't natively use tools. And four, as we all know, they tend to hallucinate. When you put all these together, these gaps make them completely unsuited to run enterprise systems on their own. Developers actually have a name for this. They call it the NN wall. Basically, if traditional automated workflows encounter any ambiguity, like, say, having to check an AI-generated marketing post for subtle brand compliance, they just halt. Bam. The system hits a wall and sits in a queue just waiting for a human review. And at that point, your cutting-edge AI is acting way more like a very expensive spreadsheet than true automation. So how do we fix this? Let's move to part 3. What is Agentic AI? Moving beyond the prompt. To get past that wall, we have to move away from basic generative AI. Gen AI operates on a simple prompt response loop, right? It depends entirely on humans for the very next step. Agentic AI, on the other hand, is fundamentally different. An agentic system actually perceives its environment, reasons through complex goals, uses external tools to take real action, and then, this is key, it repeats those loops autonomously until the goal is fully achieved. By moving from traditional, rigid rules to true autonomous action, Agentic AI simultaneously shatters those older ceilings we talked about: judgment, adaptability, and ambiguity. It doesn't just passively respond to a user, it actively pursues an outcome. It's a total game changer. Let's open up the hood. Part 4, Anatomy of an Agent, Deconstructing the Future. You really have to understand that an agent isn't just a language model floating out there in a vacuum. The model is merely the reasoning brain sitting at the center of the operation. To actually function, it must be wrapped in vital orchestration layers. It needs inputs to perceive, a memory layer for persistent state, tools to execute real-world actions, and a strict foundation of governance to keep everything safe and on track. And when that agent finally goes to work, it follows an incredibly rigorous life cycle. First, it takes a user's intent. Then it plans and breaks down the goal. Next, it moves to execution by calling the necessary APIs. But it doesn't stop there. It validates the results, runs a governance check, and only then does it deliver a trusted outcome back to you.
Which brings us to the architecture. Part 5, Cognitive Operations Stack, the 12-layer blueprint.
Now, this is the master blueprint. This 12-layer stack is exactly what's required to cross that fault line we talked about earlier, moving from an unreliable, flashy demo to a fully governed production system. It covers the whole shebang, from defining the business problem all the way down at layer 1, right on up to strict policy and governance at layer 12. Every single capability securely builds on the floor below it. Okay, to make this practical, let's isolate two of the absolutely most crucial layers from that stack. We've got layer 4, memory, which basically cures the AI's amnesia, and layer 5, tooling, which gives the agent actual hands to manipulate your enterprise software. Let's look at memory first. Without this specific 4-layer architecture, which combines short-term context, session history, semantic memory, and persistent storage, an AI is basically just a brilliant colleague who shows up to work every single day with complete amnesia, right? Memory is what grounds the agent in factual reality and makes it genuinely useful over time. Meanwhile, the tool invocation flow is how the agent reaches out into the real world. It seamlessly translates a user goal into an active API or database call, interprets the response, and takes an action. Whether it's querying inventory, sending emails, or triggering payments, it executes all of it without a human ever needing to click a button. Pretty wild, right? Finally, let's talk about safety. Part 6, Human-in-the-Loop Governance, Trust by Design. Listen, the goal here isn't to remove humans from the workforce, not at all. Instead, we're making human oversight a foundational architectural primitive. Human-in-the-Loop governance builds mandatory pause points directly into the agent's code. This guarantees that you maintain strict accountability over critical, high-stakes decisions before the agent is allowed to proceed. And this is how it all beautifully comes together in a multi-agent mesh. You have an AI orchestrator managing a team of specialized agents, researchers, analyzers, executors. The agents handle the vast volume and the heavy lifting, but humans, we step in at exactly the right moments, like at the validation stage, to provide nuanced judgment, ethical checks, and strategic oversight. The chatbot ceiling has been permanently broken. We now have agentic systems that can reason, act, remember, and safely collaborate with humans. So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Now that you know what's actually possible, what impossible workflow in your organization are you going to automate first? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to look at your daily processes through this incredible new lens.